To Angelica Houston and Raul Julia in The Addams Family. Bette Midler and James Caan are USO entertainers in For the Boys. And a little mouse braves the wild frontier in an American tale, Fievel Goes West.
First met was an evening much like this. Magic in the air. A boy.
A girl.
An open grave.
The ghoulish cartoons that became a TV show are now a motion picture in the Addams Family. One of the big new holiday movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert, along with the early results of our viewers' poll on who should play the new Scarlett O'Hara and Rhett Butler in the sequel to Gone with the Wind. We got lots of letters. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is one of those films where you smile and you chuckle and you keep waiting for it to really take off. And it never does. The Addams Family is based on the classic Charles Addams cartoons and the old TV show and captures their spirit very nicely in tone and look, but the movie plays like a series of cartoon captions and never really develops any momentum. I've got to admit, though, that the roles are perfectly cast. Here are Angelica Houston as Morticia and Raul Julia as Gomez, and odd as their roles are, they make a good fit and generate some nice, mordant chemistry.
Last night you were unhinged. You were like some desperate, howling demon. You frightened me. Do it again.
The plot involves a scheme to infiltrate an imposter into the family, and he's played by Christopher Lloyd, who pretends to be the long-lost Uncle Fester, and whose role is to find out where the family hides its fortune.
Aren't memories precious? Today I like to wander through the house, remembering.
No, sorry, old man. No wandering today. Today we're going straight to the vault. Bravo, Pugsley!
The biggest laugh in the movie involves those two kids who appear in a school play and spray the audience with blood. I laughed at that, and as I said, I enjoyed a lot of the Addams Family, but the screenplay was like a series of aborted takeoffs. There's a one-liner, and then a full stop, and then another gag, and then another pause, and the effect is uncannily like a series of cartoons and captions. Everything is a variation on the one assumption that the Addamses are cheered up by what depresses and frightens everybody else. When Charles Addams did that once a week in his New Yorker cartoons, that approach worked, but as a movie, it gets awfully long and drawn out.
That's exactly the reaction I had, which is that the movie, it's all fits and starts, so then your head starts sort of bobbing because you're waiting for the gag, you're waiting for the gag. The other thing is, Charles Addams cartoons mostly showed the Addams in relief against normal people. So you have the Christmas carolers down below, and they're pouring a bucket of water from the roof. That's one of his most famous images. Well, here, a lot of it takes place in the Addams household, and it isn't as funny when they're all together. The movie starts really taking off about 3/5 of the way through when they go outside. The Addams family are sort of broken, tossed out of the mansion. If they had put the Addams people with the normal people more often, you would have laughed even more.
That's a very good point, because in those conversations that they have within the house, there's nobody to be the straight man. There's no place to cut for the reaction shot, and so if we don't get the reaction shot, we don't get the laugh point, and we're just watching this behavior, waiting for somehow.
Here's a movie that you can come in.
The real world.
Can come in about an hour and 15 minutes into this picture, and you'll see the funny part. Okay, our next film, and not only does the new animated film American Tail, Fievel Goes West, suffer by comparison with another cartoon feature that just opened, Beauty and the Beast, I don't think this Fievel movie is very good in its own right. Once again, we follow the adventures of Fievel the Mouse and his Russian-Jewish immigrant family, the Mousekowitzes, and this time they leave New York for greener pastures out west, lured by an evil cat.
So, what do we have here? It appears to be a young pioneer.
As for Fievel's family, well, his sister ends up performing in the evil cat's saloon.
Tell me you will never roam.
We swear we won't go roaming.
You'll be by your fire
In this film, Fievel's family really takes a backseat to Fievel's best buddy, a cat named Tiger, voice and personality once again by Dom DeLuise. He decides to go west too, hitches a ride on a train, and Fievel ends up literally bumping into him right into his mouth.
I think a little endive went down the wrong tube.
Helping Fievel hold off the evil cats that want to destroy his family is a dog sheriff, Wiley Burp, voiced by, well, you know who.
You want to intimidate someone, give them the lazy eye.
Oh, gee, I'm afraid to ask. Okay, what's the lazy eye?
The lazy eye.
It really is great to hear Jimmy Stewart's voice, but I didn't like the sketchy way that American Tail, Fievel Goes West, was drawn. A lot of the characters move across flat, static backgrounds. No hit songs this time like they had in the last picture. And this film basically just turns into a mugging exercise led by Dom DeLuise. And you can tell it's a very contemporary Dom DeLuise, and so that destroys the otherworldly mood of this picture. It's also a very noisy film with lots of fights that don't mean a darn thing.
I agree with you. You know, it's a shame that with 12 months out of the year, 2 new animated features have to open on the same day, because as weak as this film is, it would probably give kids something to go to and parents something to send the kids to at another time of the year, but it has no comparison at all to Beauty and the Beast. It is an absolutely standard, routine, feature-length cartoon. It doesn't have any inspiration. It has no genius. And I think that with The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, the stakes have really gone way up in the animated cartoon sweepstakes, and a movie like this no longer cuts it.
There isn't anything to like about it. What are they fighting over? What do you tell? I went with one of my daughters. I mean, what do I tell her it's about? It's about noise. There's nothing there. And then DeLuise, I don't like it when I know the names of the people that are doing the voices. I like
to be Jimmy Stewart. That was fun.
Yeah, you know what? I figured they got an impersonator. I never thought he'd do it. So it really, so even that didn't mean anything to me, and there wasn't a whole lot to enjoy.
Okay, Apocalypse Now was one of the most difficult movies ever made, and Hearts of Darkness shows how it almost wasn't made. That documentary is coming up later in the show. Coming up next, Bette Midler in For the Boys.
I want some ugliness, sweetness, some ugliness, and pleasingness, and stuff like that.
Everything and run over to London just because Eddie Sparks crooks his little finger, is that it?
Uh-huh. Come on, you're gonna turn down a USO tour with Eddie Sparks? Who you kidding? That's a career maker.
Big band singer played by Bette Midler gets invited to join the World War II USO tour of superstar Eddie Sparks, played by James Caan in For the Boys, and that's the beginning of a relationship between those two song and dance hoofers that lasts for 50 years, except that for about 35 of those years, they're not on speaking terms. Their partnership gets off on the wrong foot the first time they're on stage together, when Midler upstages Caan.
2 hours along with you, that boy deserves a Purple Heart.
Well, it was purple, all right, but I don't think it was his heart.
He fires her, she quits, his people tell him they're great together, he tries to hire her back, she says he has to apologize, and he does so in an ironic fashion later the same evening.
If I caused you pain, I know I'm to blame. Oh, I must have been insane.
The two partners keep breaking up all through their lives in a series of scenes taken as on a tour of world history. The Korean War, the birth of television, McCarthyism, and finally Vietnam, where Midler is reunited with her son.
So I finally got you two in the same room. Come. It's okay.
There is one basic problem which For the Boys never overcomes, and I think it's fatal to the movie. These two people never have a convincing relationship. I never sensed any real chemistry, and what's more, I didn't much like either one of them when they were apart either. Meanwhile, the movie recycles that boring old formula where the ancient star looks back over her career on the eve of a big tribute. And when the two of them finally do reunite on the stage together, Caan, who was supposed to be 91, looks so much like little big man that we care more about the makeup than anything they have to say. This is a long, slow movie.
Well, I liked a good chunk of it. I will tell you that that's a good line on Little Big Man. I mean, he looks like the character in Alienation, which I think he was in, where it's all the liver spots all over him. It's hilarious. It's a tragic error in the picture. As for the rest of the picture, I kind of liked it. It is schmaltzy, it is cornball, it's old-fashioned melodrama from the 40s, but I think it works because I think it is savvy about show business. These people don't have a relationship off performing. We ought to know all about that, don't we? We know that.
Watching this movie, I was occasionally reminded of autobiographical.
Okay. So why force them to have a relationship? I think that's more mature that they don't. Instead of, and so there's no chemistry together. The chemistry is there's no chemistry, and it's exciting.
Well, okay, except that that's not what the movie is saying, because the movie wants us to think this is a great, wonderful moment at the end when they finally smile at each other. And my suspicion is after that award show is over, where by the way they ad-libbed for about 20 minutes after it would have been off the air. Yeah. After that show is over, they're never going to talk to each other again, and probably won't go to each other's funerals either.
Coming up next, a most unusual film about the making of Francis Coppola's infamous Vietnam War picture, Apocalypse Now.
Why can't I just have the courage to say it's no good? If you know your lines, then you can forget them. Because you know more or less. I see. But that's what I'm trying to do. Forget those lines. No, but it's no fair to forget them if you never knew them.
That's a youngish director, Francis Coppola, captured on location in the Philippines in 1976, filming his much troubled and much praised Vietnam War picture, Apocalypse Now. The movie that footage is in is a remarkable new documentary called Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. And this is quite simply one of the best movies of this year, and maybe the best movie I've ever seen about movie making. One of the reasons that the woman shooting the documentary footage included in the film was Coppola's wife, Eleanor. Obviously, she had remarkable access. And here, Coppola and his cameraman try to shoot the helicopter attack scene with the Philippine Army copters that are being called away for use in the Civil War that was going on at the same time.
What? You're taking away 5. 5? They said 2. Wait a second, stand by. We just heard they're taking away 5 of our helicopters.
The shooting went way over time and way over budget, creating a scandal back home that made news. But Coppola couldn't quit. He had invested many of his own Godfather millions.
You know, I was financing the movie. How could I quit?
Also at risk in the film was its leading man, Martin Sheen, a last-minute replacement, here shown in improvisational scenes, high on booze.
My heart is broken.
Sheen suffered a heart attack during the production, and in this audio tape made by Eleanor Coppola, her husband is talking to Hollywood trying to keep it a secret.
That gossip can finish me off, because if UA hears that it's 8 weeks, UA with a $27 million negative is going to force me to complete it with what I've got. And I don't have the movie yet.
And Marlon Brando proved to be no picnic either, as Coppola throws him lines off camera so Brando can improvise when he wants to.
I can't think of any more dialogue to say.
I don't know if I can tell you how much I enjoyed this picture. You see people really at risk here, big careers and big money on the precipice. Now, I know, of course, that the movie would get made and become a great artistic and financial success, but the greatest thing about this documentary is that while you're watching it, you are actually in suspense. Are they going to finish this movie, or is it going to kill everybody? If you love movies and movie making, and if you don't, I don't know why you'd be watching the show, then you must see Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse. And even though this has been financed by Showtime and has been shown on Showtime, I saw it once, see it in the big screen. I saw it there. It's spectacular.
It's opening around the country, and it was directed by Faxbar and George Hickenlooper, who had access to this documentary footage that Eleanor Coppola made 15 years ago, and also, most remarkably, to secret tape recordings. Coppola did not know that his wife was recording him. It shows a lot of courage and honesty on the part of both of those people to make these resources available. And what it provides for future generations, or as you say, for anyone who loves the movies, is a look at how movies are really made. And we know that Apocalypse Now is a great film, but boy, I admire it more now because you see that these people really were hanging out there twisting in the wind trying to get this movie made, and they did it somehow, and this is a fabulous documentary.
Well, this is going to be real high up. I'm not going to say how high. I haven't seen all the movies this year. It's going to be real high on my list of the best films of the year. The other thing is, you know who I really want to have see this picture?
Who's that?
Not just movie fans. Other movie makers. It should shame them. Because look at the pictures we review.
Might scare them, too.
Look at the pictures we review week after week. Are they even trying to hit one out of the ballpark like this guy? Are they shooting from their heart? Forget it.
That's right. Okay, well, coming up next, one of the most controversial filmmakers in the world is stirring things up again. We'll review Prospero's book starring Sir John Gielgud after this. His wife and her lover entranced a lot of people a year and a half ago and shocked a lot of other people. His new film is named Prospero's Books, and it's inspired by Shakespeare's final play, The Tempest, and stars the great Sir John Gielgud. At the age of 86, plays the old magician who stage manages the events on an enchanted island after he's shipwrecked there with his daughter Miranda. The movie centers on the books which Prospero brought to the island, medieval manuscripts of forgotten lore, which are visually shown with almost voluptuous abandon.
Some manufactured with silvered papers, some covered in a film of mercury that will roll off the page unless treated cautiously. Some mirrors simply reflect the reader. Some reflect the reader as he will be in a year's time, as he would be if he were a child.
Apart from that narration, Sir John does almost every voice in the movie himself, and since this may possibly be his last film, Prospero's famous speech here takes on a special poignancy.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
Peter Greenaway does not make easy movies, and Prospero's Books is not an easy movie. It's one of his most difficult. And yet, this is the kind of film that can become a cult hit on home video because you can play it like a favorite record album, allowing its ideas and its style to sink in. Greenaway uses advanced visual effects here to show layer after layer of pages of manuscripts and illustrations and lettering coming in, superimposed. The effect is beautiful and hypnotic.
Well, you know, you really have two things operating here. The technological achievement using high-definition television and electronic paint boxes and all that stuff is spectacular. I haven't seen anything like it. It's absolutely remarkable. But it is so overloaded. It reminds me of his last picture where we had all the numbered bodies lying around there. Drawing by numbers. And I'm thinking, you know, get me to the heart of this. A lot of other people have handled Shakespeare's Tempest, and Gielgud's been involved in productions with it, where the heart does show. Cassavetes' film had that same kind of feeling using the Tempest. This one, I didn't feel the heart in it. I saw the technology more.
You know, Greenaway has said, in fact, I talked to him at the Toronto Film Festival, he said that he's trying to develop ways to put things on top of narrative and to make us look at a movie in a different way than sit there and watch it for 2 hours, it spools past us and it's over. And here, I think a movie like this needs to be seen on Laserdisc with stop action so that you can read some of the stuff on the screen. You can see some of the layers as they appear. He wants us, I think, really to access this movie like a computer file rather than to sit in a theater and watch it. And so I think, therefore, its destiny is in home video.
Okay, well, it made me uncomfortable. As much as I admired the technological work, I thought the heart was missing. Now, last week, we asked you to send us your opinions about who should play Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara on the new TV miniseries that's coming up. We're going to have a report on your answers next. Ideas for the Gone with the Wind sequel that's going to be made into an elaborate TV miniseries. Roger's suggestions were Meryl Streep and Timothy Dalton. I like the casting of Demi Moore and Alec Baldwin. Now, we asked you for your ideas, and we got them. And here are a couple of the best. Here's one from Amy Novitt of Melrose, Massachusetts. She writes, Sean Connery is a properly aged, roguish actor who, like Clark Gable, has the ability to make it seem like he's in on the joke that everyone else is missing. Holly Hunter would be a perfect, sassy, selfish Scarlett if she could just shed her tomboy image long enough to play a feminine coquette. I think she could do it. That's a good idea. Of the movie actors mentioned, Sean Connery was named quite often as Rhett, and here is the actress who was named most often as Scarlett, Susan Lucci. Kenneth Slee from Streamwood, Illinois writes, my wife and many of our friends and I agree that Susan is perfect for the role of Scarlett. Maybe she can finally win that Emmy. He also suggests James Brolin for Rhett. What do you think about Sean Connery?
I love Sean Connery in almost everything. I think that, of course, it would be Sean Connery and not Rhett Butler, but then you're not going to get an unknown in that age bracket anyway.
There's something about Gable that I don't think the guys are going to want to go anywhere near it, and they're all going to come up short.
Well, we got some other suggestions. For example, one person suggested Pee Wee Herman and Roseanne Barr. That was certainly new ground.
It was amusing. Now, if you want to write us about Scarlett or Rhett or any other matter on our show, here again is our address. Siskel and Ebert, 630 North McClure Court, Chicago, Illinois, 60611. We'll take more letters and have a final poll in a few weeks.
Okay, now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down for The Addams Family, which has its moments but would be funnier with more of the real world included. 2 more thumbs down for An American Tail, Fievel Goes West, a routine and ordinary animated feature. A split decision on For the Boys. Gene enjoyed the nostalgic Bette Midler and James Caan musical. I didn't feel the chemistry. We both hated the makeup. 2 thumbs way up for Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, the most extraordinary documentary ever made about filmmaking. And finally, a split decision on Peter Greenaway's Prospero's books. Gene thought it had more technology than heart. I think it would be rewarding on home video. And by the way, home video is also where filmmakers, where Hearts of Darkness will eventually wind up after having been on cable, and it's now in theaters.
See it in a theater.
I saw it twice on the big screen, and it's remarkable.
Fabulous, fabulous piece of movie making. That's it for this week. Next time, by popular demand, a sequel to our special show on movie cliches, those familiar scenes that Hollywood can't seem to stop making again and again and again. Our new show is called They'll Do It Every Time Part 2. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
The SaniFlush family of toilet bowl cleaners. To make your bowl more than clean, make it SaniFlush and make it sanitary. It's America's favorite jelly bean, Jelly Belly, now appearing at theaters and video stores with good taste. Jelly Belly beans. Try them, you'll love them. Experience Santa Fe cologne for her, for him, forever, and discover why it gets pretty hot in Santa Fe. Tater Twister electric curly cutter turns vegetables into curls or spirals. Put in a potato, fun shapes twist out. Make curly fries and more. Tater Twister from Presto.